A new format. A new microphone. Same old Extreme. Welcome to a new version of Extreme.
Yes.
My name is Zach.
My name is Joey.
And this is a podcast where we still dig deep on your favorite video games, but now we're making it a bit different.
A bit.
So hold on to your seatbelts.
Different.
Because this is going to get fun.
Going to get spectacular.
Here with the new game, Spyro the Dragon.
Yes. Hello.
Spyro, yes. Paul, delete that.
No, don't.
Paul, delete that.
No, don't do it. Okay, delete that one.
Spyro the Dragon, yes, this is what we're playing. Released in September of 1998, published by Sony and Universal Pictures, and developed by Insomniac Games. Fantastic little platformer game, and I'm very excited to start digging into it.
Yes. As am I.
So,
As am I.
It opens up here initially with the title card showing the game. We'll have more of an emphasis really on Spyro and the enemy interactions as Spyro glares down enemies that run past him. This is literally in the first minute of the game turning on.
Yeah, like the first 10 seconds, even.
Yeah, and actually the initial logo being held by an enemy which is initially scared off by Spyro flying in.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see a game that was in full 3D, but where the primary focus of the game would be interaction with the enemies. To the best of my knowledge, that had never been done before.
This game's story is based on a TV interview basically gone wrong.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you saw the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So it actually starts off with the dragons being interviewed by someone about how awesome it is to live where they are.
Yep.
And basically calling Nasty Nork the villain of the game, or as the TV interviewer calls him, Gnasty Gnork. Basically just insults him playground school child style, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
What about this Gnasty Gnork character? Now, I understand he's found a magic spell to turn gems into warriors for his cause.
I'll take that question. Nasty Nork is a simple creature. Simple. He has been contained in a remote world and is no threat to the Dragon Kingdom. No threat! Besides, he is ugly. Ugly? That.
So Nasty Nork turns them all into crystals as the interview is going on. But funny little thing I just wanted to call out, they did say that he was in a completely different world. So I guess this is being live streamed to all the realms?
Live stream to all the realms and Earth.
You know what? Apparently the Dragon universe has better internet connection or better radio connection than I do.
That is
because
not surprising. Cause
I could barely get good internet in my own house, which is in this dimension. And they have it in real time. Enough that Nasty Nork can already turn all of them into crystals almost immediately after he hears about it.
It's the future, man. Or a long time ago in a galaxy far away. I don't know.
How tightly woven they've been over the years, and then it went all the way back to that first meeting. And by the way, the stuff with the microphone here is hilarious, this interview stuff.
This was the idea of Ellen Mendron or maybe Brian Hastings. I'm not sure. It was. We were trying to come up with this idea for how we start the game that in a non-expected way. And so
yeah, I mean that seems way ahead of its time, in that it's like more pop culture-y than like video games. What year was this again?
This was, we
96?
started making this in 96.
Okay.
And it was released in 98.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like a reality TV show, or like almost.
As we move into the game, though, we start off in World 1, the artisan world. And it already has all the... You can already see just from the beginning, it's got the makings of a solid platformer.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that you need to make a platforming character stand out is give them personality.
Nice. Yeah.
Not just in their speech, but in how they act.
Right.
So there's a beautiful little idle animation if you just wait of Spyro just kind of scratching himself, looking back at you, being like, yo, what are we doing? Are we moving on from this? I got things I gotta do. I got dragons I gotta save.
Yeah. Yeah, right away this game like shows character. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if the intro didn't really cue you in that this game is gonna have a lot of character, be prepared.
Yeah.
But as you save the first dragon, which is literally kind of shown to you immediately, this is what you need to do without you actually having to do anything,
Right.
based on how the camera is positioned and how the elements in the environment interact.
Mm-hmm.
Its camera is pointed directly at this glass dragon that is shaking. It's basically doing a come hither movement. And to add to the camera angle and camera placement that they have set up, you can actually get a beautiful shot of the world itself and kind of the effort that went into the game engine that Al Hastings created here. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Engine to draw the environments has broken down into 7 different little renderers that work on different levels of detail of the environment to try to keep this, the fact that you're seeing a quarter of a mile away and what would be tens of thousands of polygons into something that's more manageable.
Because not only did you have these big, long views where anything in the universe could be seen from afar, but also he created an engine where you could have detail on the objects that were close.
The real trick is that in every transition we try to do a fade or morph transition, something where you're not going to see it.
It's beautiful what he did and was able to do, especially considering it was in 98. Actually, 96, I guess, while they were developing it.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But as we move through the actual game here in the World 1 hub, you're immediately kind of just dropped into an area to kind of mess around and try out the new controls. And one of the game elements that you're introduced to pretty quick is this dragonfly that kind of hangs around you. And initially, you think that it just kind of is there to grab gems, because one of the first things that you do in this area, aside from free dragons, is get gems. But you notice actually that the dragonfly actually is used as an area of effect kind of way of grabbing gems easier, as opposed to like walking up to each one of them individually. So
super convenient.
Exactly. So you don't actually have to worry about going over each and every one, and you can just kind of run through the game and vaguely be in the direction of the gems, and then you'll be fine.
Yeah. I love when they do that.
Exactly. It makes it a lot more fun, because that way you don't have to worry so much about like, shit, I turned around, gotta turn, make the camera shift, and I gotta go back, and shit, I missed it again, I gotta loop back. No. If you have one of those things that help you grab items without you having to worry about it, it quadruples your enjoyment.
Yeah. Agreed.
But as you move through you realize pretty quick that this first world is basically like a tutorial hub. A lot of the dragons that you save basically give you explanations of pretty much everything, from Sparks, your dragonfly companion, to your objectives being explicitly told to you, even where bosses are located, how to fly, everything. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we move through. But no, there's parts of it that have conveyance, which is my favorite thing in the entire world, but there's a lot of things that kind of undercut that conveyance, which makes me a bit sad. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we move through here.
Okay.
So one thing, actually, that did do a pretty good job of conveyance is the gameplay elements such as gliding. and dashing through the environments are laid out in such a way that you have to learn how to do one or the other. For one example, there is a hill in that initial area where you can get to the top of, and you see off in the distance a chest with a bunch of gems, and it's kind of telling you like, hey, you can get up here, but you got to glide to it. So how do you glide?
Right.
You would figure you have to jump, but then maybe you realize, I can't jump again. You like instinctively try and press jump again, but then you realize, I'm gliding now.
Yeah.
And then you realize,
that's a classic conveyance.
Exactly, and then you see that that Spyro is gently going down, but still going forward, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe if I jump at the top of the hill and glide, I might make it up there. Beautiful little piece of conveyance.
Yes.
Also, something I noticed in this hub area is enemies can't hurt you.
Yeah, well, I guess that makes it even more of a training world.
Yeah, they just exactly. They want to make this as easy as possible for you to get into so you can really understand how to enjoy the game. Without being like, shit, it's already too hard. No, they want you to have fun. They wanted to really actually kind of make this game appeal more to a younger audience, so they didn't want them to kind of be scared away in the beginning.
Yeah.
And we were thinking, let's do something that's a little different. And Mark Cerny said, hey, Nintendo has a lock on the family-friendly games at this point. Nintendo was killing it with family-friendly games. He said, there's nothing on PlayStation that will appeal to this audience. You guys should consider doing something. So we started brainstorming, the 4 or 5 of us who were at Insomniac, and Craig Stitt, one of our artists, said, I've always wanted to do a game about dragons. And that's where we started. And our first designs for Spyro were an adult dragon. We were making big, scary-looking dragons. And then eventually we realized that wasn't very family-friendly. Let's take them...
You mean adult dragon?
Adult
what do you mean by that, adult?
More
big dragon.
Bigger, yeah.
And
bigger.
dragon games at the time.
So we'll move into the first level of this actual world here. Stone Hill.
Yes.
One of the immediate design elements that kind of jumps out to me is a chest that can't be broken with your fire breath. It basically forces you to learn how to charge if you already hadn't figured that out from the hub before.
Yeah.
It's an interesting, forcible change because prior you could, flame pretty much everything and you'd be totally fine. But implementing this kind of a new design element already forces you pretty early on in the game to explore the other options that you have as a player at Arsenal. Basically, what they want to avoid is having you rely on your fire breath as your first order optimal strategy. So they don't want you to just just as a preface, a first order optimal strategy is the first thing that you find usually in a game where you see it as being the most effective tool, and then you just keep using that until you hit a wall. But depending on where that wall is, you'll basically just, if it's early on, you'll say, oh, okay, well, maybe there's another thing I can do here, or maybe there's another thing in my arsenal. But if you haven't really been forced to try and find a new strategy, and you're closer to the mid-game, your player might just stop playing the game.
Yeah, like you would be able to continue.
Exactly, and they'll just be like, well, I guess that's the end of this, because they don't understand there's actually another way to keep moving. So it's a good idea that they they put in that variety up front so that you don't get stuck up on saying, this is the only thing that I can do.
Right, even if you don't need it often, just to introduce it.
Exactly.
Happens when you actually get to fly into the ocean. I think I may have helped build this level, just put the polygons together. But I think I remember.
You were a level designer?
I would build environments, so I build in Maya, and
what was your background when you started? Were you a programmer or?
I was a hack. I was a hack.
So this level actually took a lot of different people to develop it, and even Ted Price himself, which was very interesting to hear, considering Ted was technically the CEO at the time. So it was basically all hands on deck when creating this game.
That's cool.
But I guess that's what happens when you're a studio of 6 people.
Yeah.
So as you keep going through this stage, though, they also explicitly, as you mentioned before, explain some of the game elements that you may have taught yourself at this point via the hub world, environmental interactions. But if you hadn't, one of the dragons basically tells you how to fly and how to glide.
Okay, yeah.
So if it wasn't already implicitly
Right.
understood, now it is explicitly understood. So it's kind of a weird dichotomy there, because I don't know if they're going for the conveyance of the environmental game design philosophy, or they're trying to do everything explicitly, or maybe just a combination of the two to kind of cover all their bases.
Yeah, like you said, it's mainly for kids, so like they might not pick up on everything.
That's true. I mean, maybe the environmental puzzles are meant for adults to kind of pick up on, because maybe they're a little, I don't know, more versed in this kind of game. I mean, let's call it more worldly. I don't know.
More experienced.
Okay. More experience. That's good. That's a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, as you move through here, it really encourages collection of treasure. Because actually, funnily enough, no matter how far away you are, you can actually, no matter how far away you are, you actually see the twinkle from a gem.
Mm-hmm.
So there's actually no reason for you to not see what you need to get to. Granted, there's no real reason for collecting all the gems at this point. It's just kind of there to be collected.
Yeah.
Because there's no visible reward to collecting everything.
Right.
So hopefully that'll kind of become more apparent as we move through. But as of right now, they're just kind of there to be collected.
Yeah. And there's different colors, so obviously they're worth different amounts.
Exactly. As we move on to Dark Hollow, another new chest design element leads to an understanding of later enemy weaknesses. Basically, what I'm talking about here is the chrome. There's chrome attached to not just chests, but enemies. So you understand that chrome absorbs heat and cannot be broken by your flame breath. You have to actually smash into it.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're taking that a step further in the Dark Hollow here and actually putting that chrome that was previously on chests onto enemies. So you understand from previous interactions, oh, I can't use my fire breath on chrome. And I guess I have to run into it.
Right.
Or Navi, are you having trouble with that big belly narc?
You can't attack them from the front, only the
Well, you
back.
see, that's what's great. We were trying to figure out how to differentiate these enemies, and so we have enemies you can flame, enemies you can't flame, enemies you can charge, enemies you can't charge, and we had lots of debates over how to illustrate that. And so one way is through armor. You know, typical
So do you have to
game
sneak
design
behind
challenge.
that guy? Or do you just run past him?
Got to run around him and flame him in the butt.
But interestingly, it's kind of undercut by a dragon just kind of telling you what you just learned by actually having to do it.
Yeah.
Because one of the dragons basically says, hey, these guys can't be hurt by fire. Maybe you should do another thing. But it's like, well, we just figured that out. Why are you telling us after that fact?
In case you're a dumb kid.
It's just like, I don't know what I just did 2 seconds ago. Kid, thanks for reminding me. It seems like there's going to be a trend here with all the dragons, and at least in the beginning area, where they just keep telling you things you may or may not have already known. May have already known.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting, because I think since this was their first attempt at a 3D platformer for children, maybe they just wanted to cover all of their bases and make absolutely sure that you knew how to play the game in the outset here.
Yeah, could be. It is like, it's like made in the 90s, or so like, It's one of the first of its kind, I guess. You know.
I mean, I wouldn't call it the first of its kind because Mario 64 came out a while before it.
Yeah. One of.
True.
And it was on PlayStation too.
A lot of players thought dragons were cool. I'm happy that, in particular, the platformer genre wasn't dead. I mean, we came way after Mario, and we were all inspired by Mario and Metroid and the games that I was playing in college. And I remember being a little worried that this game was not going to resonate. And in fact, it didn't at first. When we released the first Spyro, the sales were pretty bad.
Really? I didn't know that. I thought it did really well.
It did, but this is a game that it sold a little bit and then more, and then it just kept on going and going and going. And part of that was the PlayStation 1 really didn't have many family-friendly titles on it. And so people who had bought the PlayStation 1 for themselves, who had kids, were recognized that, oh, this is a game that my family and I can play. And that
we move on to the next area, the town square. With another new chess type, it seems like they're kind of rolling out design elements in the form of chests. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess, to kind of get the point across. It's a new chess type. It has timed gems that pop out for about 3 seconds, and will not go away until you've actually grabbed the gem while it is in midair. So, kind of gives you an understanding that there may be timed challenges that you will have to deal with as the game progresses, and this might be a little just introductory time challenge to get you used to the idea of it. And even actually, you also get introduced to your first alternative objective, because you have the 2 main objectives, I'd call them, which is freeing all the dragons from crystals and grabbing all the gems. But I guess you have another alternative objective here of chasing down enemies that have dragon eggs. If you didn't quite understand how to do the charge mechanic before, this enemy absolutely is necessary to understand how to do it. If you try to do your normal dragon jaunt of walking towards them, you will never catch them. So the enemy is designed so that you have to be comfortable, not just with the concept of charging, but being confident in your ability to navigate platforming while charging. So it seems like the next step in understanding how to play with Spyro at this new speed. Which will actually come into play as we move further into the game. But we close off this world by actually confronting Toasty.
Confronting Toasty. I like that they have the titles of each little section.
Yeah, it kind of adds a little... It adds more to the character of the world that they're building here. It makes it seem more friendly and more... it feels like they're drawing you in and being like, hey, come check this out, be a part of this.
Yeah.
But it introduces wolf enemies in this area, or dog enemies, I'm not sure what they are. Where the concept is that certain enemies may take more than one hit until they're actually taken down.
Standard.
Standard for most games where there's not always enemies that go down in one hit, but this is their introductory to that. These dogs / wolves require 2 hits to be taken down. Unlike their magician overlords that only take 1, which is weird. I guess dogs are stronger than wizards.
That is weird.
I don't remember that in my rock, paper, scissors games.
Also, it's funny that, like, wizards are an enemy. That just, like, there's so many of them and you just, like, kill them.
It's hilarious, honestly, just the enemy design.
They're really wizards.
Yeah,
Dragons
so
and wizards.
this, all coming up with the enemies for all these levels would generally consisted of Ellen, our animator, just making something. Just making something funny.
That
and
saves you a lot of time debating and talking about concept art. You just make some stuff.
Some of the later enemies in Spyro 3, when we were in the third Spyro, when we were starting to really run out of the standards, were a little bit weird. Like we had a guy, some strange character. I think it was a turtle whose belly would just rip open. No, was a bear? I don't know. It was a turtle or something, and bats would fly out of it. That was cool and different for Spyro.
That was a boss.
But it's funny how, as you move through this stage, you end up in a 3-stage fight with what turns out to be a sheep in a costume. Just in a disguise that's got like a pumpkin on a head with a scythe.
Like a pumpkin scarecrow.
Yeah. And it's just like clearly walking really oddly. And it actually never really attacks you. The only thing it does is wait for you to attack it. And hides behind the wolves/dogs. Which actually would make more sense if they were dogs. Because I initially thought they were wolves. And I thought it would be too weird if a sheep was hiding behind wolves. It would make more sense that a dog would be protecting sheep.
Right.
But that is a funny little nod there. I gotta give it to you, Insomniac. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was.
And
this game is not without
no,
humor.
and I mean, they kind of hammer that in here with the first boss. That thing that we just took down, that was Toasty. That was the boss.
Yeah.
So not all of the bosses are going to be like these big like set piece things. It could just be a funny joke. It's just like the boss of this world is a sheep in a scarecrow costume. So it's kind of setting up that kind of, this is the kind of humor you're going to be in for this game, and I am totally in for it.
Yeah. I am down.
And I'm ready to keep going, but in another episode, because we're going to jump into World 2, which is the Peacekeepers, in our next episode.
Yes.
So thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoy the new format here. If you enjoy this style, please feel free to reach out to us. We are on everything, I think. Just go to Google and type in It's the Extreme, all one word. That's ITSTHEXSTREAM. And you'll find our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter, our Twitch. You'll find our new website that I'm going to make go live after this recording. As a reminder to myself. Make go live. We speak good English. So reach out to us. And if you want to send us an email, you can always do that at itstheextreme@gmail.com. Same spelling @gmail.com. Is there anything else I think we should talk about?
Yeah, give us some feedback on this style. Let us know what you
I think we're gonna keep doing it though. I'm pretty down with it.
Yeah.
It's more to the point, and I think it's more palatable. So we're gonna keep going on this. Don't forget to write it down, and we will talk to you guys next week.
Peace.